World War II was a conflict that spanned almost the whole world from 1913 to 1945. The main adversaries were the Axis powers Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the allies France, Great Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, and few other countries. The immediate cause for the war was the 1939 Nazi invasion of Poland, among other factors. The war dragged on for 6 years until the Allies defeated the Axis power in 1945. The consequences of World War II were far-reaching, affecting every aspect of human life and reshaping the course of history. It altered the global landscape and changed the global map, as well as resulting in the rise of the United States and the Soviet Union as superpowers and the start of the Cold War. World War II causes. World War II began in September 1939 following a German attack on Poland and the subsequent declaration of war by Britain and France against Germany. The Polish problem was the immediate cause of the Second World War, but numerous other factors contributed to the situation in which war became inevitable. Treaty of Versailles. The peace terms that were set out in the treaty after World War I were very harsh on Germany. Germany had to accept responsibility and pay reparation for the war. Germany lost territory and was barred from fielding a large military force. These were the reason for the rise of an authoritarian leader in Germany, Adolf Hitler. He took Germany to the level where the war became an inevitable reality. After World War I, the victorious Allied powers met to decide Germany's fate. The Treaty of Versailles would be forced upon Germany. Germany had to accept responsibility and pay reparations for the war. Germany lost territory and was barred from fielding a large military force. The problem of national minorities. Peace settlement after the First World War had resulted in the formation of new nation states in Europe, with large national minorities left behind uncared for. Large German minorities found themselves in the company of non-Germans in Poland and Czechoslovakia. There were Russian minorities in Poland and Romania. Hitler exploited the situation in the name of denial of rights to German minorities in Czechoslovakia and Poland and prepared for aggression. Economic depression 1929. The world experienced an economic depression in the late 1920s. During a depression, economics contract, trade declines, businesses close, prices decrease, banks fail, and unemployment rises. As the major global economies turned to protectionism, it caused the rise of authoritarian and totalitarian regimes in many countries like Italy and Japan. Failure of League of Nations. The League of Nations was established in 1990 to maintain global peace. The League of Nations proved to be a failure because all countries did not join the League and the League had no army to prevent military aggression such as Italy's invasion of Ethiopia in Africa or Japan's invasion of Manchuria in China. Aggression of Axis powers. Japan's aggression, the economic depression compelled Japan to invade the resource-rich region of Manchuria, China in 1931. Later, Japan captured Beijing and Shanghai in 1937. Further, Japan also captured Korea in 1931. Germany's aggression. Hitler, promising to overturn the Treaty of Versailles and recapture the lost territories, quickly began militarizing Germany. He ordered German troops to enter the German-speaking Rhineland, France, Austria, and Czechoslovakia in 1936. Italy's aggression in 1935. Italy invaded Ethiopia and the League of Nations condemned Italy as an aggressor and put a ban on the sale of arms to Italy. Axis Treaty. In October 1936, Germany and Italy formally joined the Rome-Berlin Axis. In May 1939, Germany and Italy signed a military alliance called the Pact of Steel. Later, Japan joined them, and on September 27, 1940, Germany, Italy, and Japan signed a tripartite pact at Berlin. Failure of appeasement policy. The British government, led by PM Stanley Baldwin and Neville Chamberlain, adopted a policy of appeasement towards Hitler. This was first to counter the rise of France and later to support Hitler, who declared countering communists by signing the Anti-Comintern Pact in 1936 with Italy, later joined by Japan. The pact was signed in March 1936 after Germany reconquered the Rhineland administered by France in the Treaty of Versailles. France too started appeasing Germany. This was also evident in the Spanish Civil War of 1938. This appeasement policy proved wrong for the Allied powers as Hitler started adopting the policy of aggression in reconquering Germany's lost territory. Munich Conference. Italian leader Benito Mussolini persuaded the leaders of Britain, France and Germany to meet at Munich Conference. It was agreed that Hitler could occupy the Czechoslovakian region bordering Germany as long as Germany guaranteed they would take no further territory. In March 1939, Hitler broke the agreement and invaded the rest of Czechoslovakia. The appeasement policy became dead on moral grounds when Hitler attacked German Jews, but Hitler continued his policy, signed a non-aggression pact with the USSR in August 1939 and invaded Poland on 1st September 1939. This started World War II. World War II phases. Britain and France had promised military assistance to Poland if attacked by Germany. Therefore, the invasion of Poland became the immediate cause of the Second World War. Outbreak of the war. England and France declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939. On September 18, the Soviet Union invaded Poland, but Italy and the United States did not join the war for some time. Early triumphs. During 1939 to 41, Germany easily won many victories in Europe by adopting the Blitzkrieg tactics or the lightning war, which was the speedy penetration by tank followed by the Luftwaffe Air Force. The German army conquered Poland in 3 weeks. By April 1940, the German forces conquered Norway and Denmark. In May, Belgium, Holland and Luxembourg were occupied. The invasion of France began on 12 May 1914. Mussolini too declared war on France and Paris fell undefended. Operation Sea Lion. The invasion of Britain, known as Operation Sea Lion, was only achievable if the German force could cross the English Channel. In August 1940, the Luftwaffe launched a campaign over British skies. The British Air Force inflicted tremendous damage on the Luftwaffe. By November 1940, Operation Sea Lion was indefinitely put off. Thus, it was a stalemate with Britain. After conquering Yugoslavia and Greece, next Hitler now turned to Russia. Operation Barbarossa. Hitler had always wanted to expand Germany eastward to have Lebensraum, leaving space for its people. Stalin too knew Hitler's intention but needed some time for rearmament. On 22nd June 1941, Germany attacked Russia under Operation Barbarossa without a formal declaration of war. The Soviet Union sought Allied assistance. A military pact was signed in July between Moscow and London. Germans occupied Leningrad in September and Ukraine in October 1941, but the winter and reinforced Russian army left Moscow unoccupied and operation failed. Atlantic Conference. In August 1941, US President Franklin D. Roosevelt and British PM Winston Churchill met in Newfoundland to counter on a range of issues related to World War II. The Atlantic Charter was the result of the conference and it set the principle for post-war international reorganization and the establishment of wider and permanent system of general security. Birth of United Nations. Embodying these principles, a declaration of the United Nations was signed by all the anti-Axis powers on 1st January 1942. Entry of US. Since the outbreak of war, the US had been sympathetic to Britain, allowing them to buy arms first on a cash and carry basis and then on a lend-lease system. In November, Britain promised to attack Japan if the United States got involved in a conflict with that nation. The United States was forced to enter the war when Japan attacked its naval base in Pearl Harbor on 6 December 1941. Italy and Germany both proclaimed war on the United States on December 11. The war thus became global, a world war, Battle of Stalingrad. By November 1942, the German army were in and around Stalingrad, but they were encircled by Soviet troops. The Russian winter again took its toll, and by January 31, 1943, the German army had collapsed. This was the fatal blow to Hitler. The majority of Ukraine and other regions of Soviet Union were liberated from the Axis forces by March 1944. Defeat of Italy. In 1943, the Allied powers decided to launch an attack against the Axis. By liquidating the Italian Empire in Africa. This objective was achieved by May 1943. Soon Operation Husky was launched and Sicily too was occupied. Italy surrendered unconditionally on September 3, 1943. Yalta Conference. At the Yalta Conference in February 1945, the large offensive against Germany was outlined. The Americans, Canadians, French and British launched an all-out offensive against Germany. Defeat of Germany. The Allies quickly regained the lost territories from Germany and soon surrounded Berlin. Hitler committed suicide on April 30, 1945. Finally, on May 7, the Doinische government of Germany surrendered unconditionally all land, sea and air forces of the Reich. The war in Europe war on 8 May 1945. The Potsdam Conference 1945. The Big Three, Joseph Stalin, Winston Churchill, replaced on July 26 by Prime Minister Clement Attlee and Harry Truman, met in Potsdam, Germany from July 17 to August 2, 1945 to make important decisions regarding a formal treaty of peace. It was decided that Germany would be disarmed and that the Nazi organization and its laws would be abolished. The war criminals were to be tried later. Nuremberg trials. Finally, a democratic government would be established in Germany. Defeat of Japan. Japan entered World War II with the invasion of French Indochina on September 22, 1940. Consequently, it captured Southeast Asian regions from the Allied powers. Manchuria and Korea had already been captured. It dragged the US to World War II. In July 1945, the Potsdam Conference gave a call to Japan regarding the unconditional surrender, which it ignored and continued to fight. On August 6, 1945, the American Air Force dropped the first ever atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 2 days later, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan. Another bomb was dropped on Nagasaki on 9 August 1945, unleashing unprecedented devastation. The following day, Japan sued for peace. Fighting ceased, but surrender documents were signed by on September 2, 1945 on board the US battleship Missouri. Second World War consequences. The outcome of the war was the defeat of the Axis powers and the victory of the Allies. This also signified the triumph of democracy and the demise of fascism and dictatorship. Following are the consequences of the war. Devastating end of the war. By the end of Second World War, much of Europe and Asia and parts of Africa lay in ruins. The war claimed a starting number of military and civilian fatalities. The war resulted in the total demolition of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Change in global order. The old imperial powers like Britain and France lost their importance post-World War II. The United States became the leader of free world or democracy. The Soviet Union had grown more dominant in the eastern half of Europe with the defeat of Germany. Economic hardship. By 1945, war-exhausted countries faced severe economic problems such as inflation, debt, trade deficits and balance of payments deficit, depleted gold and dollar supplies, etc. In 1948, US President Truman signed the Economic Recovery Act of 1948, the Marshall Plan. It recommended that the United States provide economic help to repair Europe's post-war economic infrastructure. Nuclear arms race. The use of atomic weapons during World War II marked the beginning of the atomic age. International effort to restrict the development of nuclear technology swiftly failed, resulting in a race between the countries to build their own nuclear weapons. Beginning of Cold War. Following the defeat of the Axis forces on an ideological and political competition between the United States and the Soviet Union led to the outbreak of the Cold War. Role of Indians in the World War II. As with the First World War, Britain called for Indian soldiers to assist in the war effort. Largest volunteers army. The size of the British Indian Army at its peak reached 2.5 million, making it the largest volunteer army in the world. Approximately 89,000 Indian soldiers died fighting for the Europe Empire. Fought on all major fronts. The Indian Army was deployed for war in Europe, Africa, the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Indian troops played a significant role in liberating Italy from Nazi Germany in the Battle of Monte Cassino. Major supplier of war. The Indian subcontinent became a vast supply ground for the war against the Japanese on Southeast Asia. Hundreds of its new factories maintained regular supplies of textile and other war-related materials to all the Allied countries' impact on India. The Second World War has a huge impact on India. By the end of the Second World War, Britain's place in the world had changed dramatically and the demand for independence could no longer be ignored. Subhash Chandra Bose raised the INA consisting of Indian soldiers and prisoners of war of Japanese in Southeast Asia to fight and overthrow the British rule in India. After the war, the British colonial government planned to try the surviving members of the INA for treason, which resulted in a new wave of nationalism. The war resulted in the rise in taxes, inflation, corruption, and famines. The most devastating famine in India was during World War II in 1943.